Hi everyone. Today I am speaking to Jennifer from America. I'm not sure where exactly you
Canada,
are. But Canada. Oh, well, Canada,
Toronto.
America, Toronto. Okay, well, there you go. I already got it wrong and we just started. Anyways, Jennifer is intuitive business mentor and she'll introduce herself shortly. But today we are talking about sacred geometry. It's something I've really been interested in since working with nature's frequencies, especially because a lot of our products have sacred geometry on it, and I'm just curious to find more what it actually means because there's so many different symbols. So Jennifer here is going to enlighten me. So hi Jennifer, it's great to talk to you.
Lovely to speak with you too. So I'm an intuitive business mentor and chief energy optimizer, and I'm all about how can we maximize our energy personally so that we can show up as the best version of ourselves. And I've been curious about sacred geometry as well for over a decade. I'm not an expert in it, but it's just something that's piqued my curiosity, much like you, Lena. And there's something very special about the shapes that we're surrounded with in nature and in our worlds. And I feel like asking first, what is a favorite symbol of yours that you really enjoy and that you're bringing into your world right now?
Well, I just showed you, right? I'm the flower of life, which I'm wearing around my neck, which is actually a pet tag, but I've got it. It just looks so cool. Yeah.
And so for a bigger visual for people of what that looks like, this is the flower of life. This is actually a crystal grid that I will then put crystals at the intersection points. And what you can do with that is you can use it to amplify energy. I'm also wearing my circle of life ring.
Oh
So
wow.
it's the same
Yeah.
pattern,
That was
but it's
pretty
in a
cool.
ring format. So the word geometry actually means measures of the earth, measures of the earth. So sacred geometry is about that divinity. And it's interesting. I was having a conversation with my husband about it, about sacred geometry. He studied architecture. And I was saying, what is sacred geometry to you? And he's like, well, it's finding the divinity in the math. So a lot of people from way back when, so for instance, Leonardo da Vinci is a phenomenal Italian polymath, known as an architect, an inventor, an artist, so many interesting talents that he brought forth. And he was really fascinated by nature and looking for the patterns in nature and how could we use those patterns in his inventions and in his architecture and in his creations. One of the most common symbols that he created in his curiosity and exploration around nature and looking for these proportions and things that we can learn from nature and how we can bring that into our own creations, because we're an expression of nature as well, is the Vitruvian man. And you may have seen the symbol. Um, this was my husband's book on sacred geometry. And the Vitruvian man depicts a man standing out. This isn't quite it, but in Leonardo da Vinci's depiction, he has the man in the square as well as depicted in a circle. And he actually measured a whole bunch of different male models to determine what is like the most ideal proportion of hand, of the way the face is shaped. And there's this sacredness and divinity of this golden ratio of proportions. And for me, when we can use the sacred geometry in our world, in our day, we can tap into a new form of energy from the wisdom of Mother Earth. A common symbol that's spoken to. So this is I am ready at the bottom of it. This was a symbol that I used in a program that I have starting again on Monday. But for that particular group, this symbol here of the swirl, this is a Fibonacci swirl. There's a calculation of how far out this is based on a number of squares that are drawn. And it's again about these sacred proportions that are found within nature, because think about where you've seen this.
The shell, right?
Yeah, yeah. Also, the center of some flowers,
Right, yeah.
it'll be in that pattern. And so for me, how I use a symbol like this is I work with symbols in my spiritual practice to clear, expand, and amplify my energy. So if there is a mantra, a belief, a new way of being that I want to instill in me, for me, I will draw that swirl on my hand while repeating that mantra. So for the program I have, I Am Ready, it was about people being ready to show themselves out in the world, being braver, more courageous with sharing their gifts and their business. So having that swirl and reminding them that they're ready, inviting them to say that mantra, I am ready, as they draw it on their hand. I will use symbols by wearing them. So I shared this one here. It's known as the Star of David. For me, though, it is as above, so below.
So what does that mean for you, as above, so below?
For me, that means as up in heaven, may it be present here on earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about allowing that energy to flow through me as I speak, as I connect, as I write, as I go through my day. And so it comes up as well, symbolically in three-dimensional. This is called a Merkaba, and it's also known as a sacred symbol. It is two tetrahedrons, so two triangles. And so I'm wearing one right now. I don't know if you can really see it or not, but some people believe that you can tap into much broader wisdoms when you imagine yourself meditating within a Merkaba. So if I imagine that I've got those two tetrahedrons there, and if you imagine in the lotus position, sitting there cross-legged, that is the shape of the body is reflective of that triangle. So mimicking that shape allows you, when you get into a meditative state, and there's a particular process for a breathing technique that you can also use to really connect in with the visualization of those two triangles coming together, sitting in it, and a breathing technique to tap into that energy to take you into, much like how a monk might go away into a cave and do some meditating to get some reflection on answers that he wants to see. Same kind of experience for using the visualizing of the symbols, the secret symbols, to help with bringing it into your reality as a tool.
And how can you use the symbols for healing? Because I know you can also use them in healing practices, right? How do you think that works?
So it can be a number of different ways. It's interesting, like there's another symbol called the Sri Yantra. And to me, I see a lion's mane in this. I see a dot. There's a period, a dot right in the very center. That's like 0 point. And I see like a lion's face when I look at this. And I first discovered this symbol when I was hearing about a gentleman who wore it on him. He had a tattoo and he had a particular prayer that he used, looking at different, so you can use them visually. He used a specific prayer, looking at the different layers of the shape, saying a different mantra at different stages to bring him back to center and connecting in with his own divinity. So I use it drawing. So as I mentioned, I'll draw it on my hand. I will imagine the triangles. For the two triangles, I'll imagine drawing one, drawing the other, and imagine pulling that down over me. And when I do that, so I teach people how to check their inner battery. And it's about checking in to see how you're feeling physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And if my numbers are low, so you check on a scale of 1 to 10, how am I feeling in those different areas? And for me, if my energy is 7 or lower, then I'm not showing up as the best version of me. And I need to do something to shift. Because when I am in that space of not feeling so good, it takes longer to do things, right? There's those thoughts running in your head. It's just so much resistance. It's like, oh, I don't know how to do this. Ah! And it's like, okay, clearly my energy is off. And then whatever I try to speak at that point, the words just won't come out, or I try to write something, that writer's block. So coming into this place of boosting your energy, I'll use those symbols where I'll draw it in the air, I'll draw it on my hand, I'll draw it above me and imagine it coming over me, bringing it into my presence. And that's how I use it. Think about how people use the cross in their life. They have a cross on their home, just to bless that space, to clear the energy and uplift the energy. And people will draw the cross on themselves to connect in with God. So it's tapping into that divinity, whatever that might mean for you, of a greater power, and coming into alignment with it. And as you do, then that's where you're most powerful as well. Now, I remember having a conversation with a family member around Easter, and I'm not religious myself. I'm curious about different religions, but I wouldn't say that I am of a particular religion. And she's Catholic through and through. And so there was a moment in the procession. We were watching an Easter procession, and it talked about, bringing God in your heart and believing in that spark inside of you. And I asked, do you believe that? She's like, oh no. Like we put God and divinity out there and we keep it separate. And to me, the sacred geometry is about harnessing that energy and recognizing that it's within us. The sacred geometry proportions, as what Leonardo da Vinci was depicting in Vitruvian Man, they are reflected in us as well. We are nature. So how can we tap into this all-knowing? Because nature always survives. Nature always wins. It always knows how to heal itself. How can we tap into that for ourselves?
That's really interesting. So if somebody was just curious about, sacred geometry, can you recommend somewhere where they can start? Because obviously there's so much information. Is there anything that's, you really resonated with?
I've just Googled along the way, to be completely honest. There hasn't been anything, there hasn't been a particular...
Like sacred geometry for dummies or something.
Yeah, there could be. This book here, I actually found very fascinating. Not that I think that it's necessarily what somebody needs to look at, but it's very comprehensive, and it shows how it's been depicted in architecture, and it shows nature, and it talks about like the math behind it. So for people who are more logically minded, this is actually really
mathematical. I should give it to my mom.
I'm sorry?
I should give it to my mom. She loves math.
Yeah, she probably would find it really fascinating. And this is meant for, well, it's talking about philosophy here too. So it does bring in shapes from nature, as well as the math, as well as the sacredness of it all, and how it's been repeated over the years. I feel like if somebody's curious about sacred geometry, there's probably a symbol that they really resonate with. Start to just learn about that. What does it mean? Because I believe that the geometry is almost like a language unto itself. And we're drawn to it for a reason. There's something significant about it for us to learn from that in that moment. So I was working with the Sri Yantra probably about 5 years ago, and I still have it in my space, but I can't remember the prayer that goes with it. I needed it for that point in time. The Star of David, as above, so below, this has been significant for me for my whole spiritual journey the last decade, and as well as the Fibonacci swirl. That's been really significant for me. There are other symbols that I see, like the Metatron's cube, and I'm curious about it. and I know that it's powerful, but I haven't immersed myself in it.
Mm.
So I believe that whatever it is that you're drawn to, that there's something significant for you.
That's a really good advice, actually. That's very true. And just on a last note, so being in the intuitive business mentor, is that what you basically help people to connect with their business, with the soul of the business? Is that what it means?
Yeah, so I blend intuition with business strategies. So I have a bachelor's degree of commerce and with honors. I worked in the corporate world. So I came from that very logical mindset, and I'm very curious, and I'm good with numbers and helping people figure things out. And also, one of our biggest superpowers as entrepreneurs is really being able to tap into our intuition, that gut instinct. And when we can blend together the logical side with that intuitive and spiritual side of it, I believe that that's where we step into our power. The logical aspect helps us with navigating the real world. And then the intuitive aspect helps us with channeling the energy and understanding our purpose, and figuring out, how does my purpose fit into this real world? What is it that I want to bring and contribute to the world? What is my purpose of how I'm here to make a difference? And then using the logical side of it of okay, now how do I bring that to life in a manner that's going to really connect with others and support others with their own transformation, however that may look.
Yeah, and that's very powerful, isn't it? Just to align all of this, I guess, three brains, your mind brain, your heart, and your gut brain together, because we spend so much up here. And that's what I do. And yesterday I actually had an EFT session for it because I'm always up here, even though I know I should be more balanced. But it's just trying, constantly trying, I guess, to just tap into different areas of your body.
And that's was the beginning of my journey. Was I was given a modality called Connect to You to help individuals with connecting the soul with the heart and the mind, because there is so much wisdom there, and when you can bring all three of them together, that's when we are most powerful. And it's important to keep that connection alive. So once you find that you've come to this place of, I'm feeling connected, it's like, yes, this is the feeling that I want to feel, then anchoring it in. What is a way to anchor it in? So it could be through a symbol, it could be through a mantra. So for me, the work that I do with my clients, there are affirmations that are at the end of the experience that we use that as an anchor. So whenever you're feeling off, you come back to these affirmations, just like in hypnosis, where somebody goes to a comedy club and sees a hypnotist on stage, and he's like, okay, now every time you see a red light, you're going to bark like a chicken, or bark like a dog, or squawk like a chicken, cluck like a chicken. And then it's like the red light, and there's that instant response. Well, when you anchor something in with a symbol or with a mantra, for instance, then every time you say those words or look at that symbol, you bring yourself back into alignment with the energy of that experience. So it brings you back into the state of connectedness. So at the end of my session, there's always these specific affirmations. And I have my clients who use those a bazillion times a day to keep them grounded and focused. And for instance, one of my clients, after she experienced my modality Connect to You, her mother passed away. And my client is in Canada, her family is in Poland. And so she went to Poland for the funeral. And she used the affirmations to help her stay connected to her true self, which allowed her to not get caught up in all the drama and trauma and from her family, and able to grieve her mother's death with
Mm,
grace.
that's very important. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this. I'll share the links to your social media. If you share them with me, I'll just pop it under the video. So if anybody wanted to know more about the intuitive business, mentoring, or sacred geometry, whatever using, how you use it in practice, then they can get in touch with you. But
Perfect.
thank you, Jennifer. Thank you very much.